This is the Town of Ossining Planning Board for October 21st, 2020. Let's go around the screen and introduce ourselves. Sandy?
Sandy Anelli, Secretary.
Valerie?
Valerie Menastra, Planning Board Consultant.
Donna?
Anna Sherrod, Planning Board Member.
Kathy?
Kathy Zelantis, Planning Board Attorney.
Jim?
Jim Bacinas, Planning Board Member.
Dan?
Dan Garcia, Consulting Engineer to the Planning Board.
Okay. Gareth, want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Gareth Huffam. I'm sorry I'm late.
No problem. And Gareth is a planning board member, and I am Ching-Hua Chin, also the chair. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is Rinaldi subdivision. I understand that they've asked for an adjournment of this matter. Is there any other members of the public who are interested in this matter, other than the EAC members?
Yeah, has the public hearing happened?
Well, it's already started, but the applicant has asked for an adjournment from today. That's why I'm sort of seeing whether there's anybody interested in this, and we can sort of have you guys leave if you don't have any interest in the other items.
Oh, got it. Okay. So no.
Okay. Kathy, Valerie, I take it we have to adjourn it to a date certain?
Yes.
Okay, could I have a motion to that effect to November 4th, I guess?
Can we talk about that for a second? If for some reason the applicant doesn't provide any additional information by the October 26th meeting, does the board want to continue the public hearing no matter what on November 4th, or do we adjourn it till the following meeting, hoping that they'll be able to provide revised drawings by that time?
Did we get any sense from the applicant whether they're going to be able to do this?
I did speak to the engineer today and tried to get a handle on when they would be submitting a plat, and he wasn't sure.
Okay.
I believe the next deadline was what, October 26th, Sandy, correct? For the November 4th meeting. So I'm guessing they're probably not going to have things submitted by then.
All right, so why don't we push it off to November 18th? Is that the suggestion?
I think that would probably be safer.
Okay, could I have a motion to that effect?
I make the motion.
Who's second? Okay, Gareth, how do you vote?
You're muted.
Gareth? Gareth?
You're muted.
There we go. Sorry, yay.
Okay.
I was looking at the agenda.
Jim?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So that's it for Rinaldi subdivision. Thank the AC members for attending. You're always welcome to attend our meetings regardless, but I didn't want to hold you up any longer than you have to be here. Have a good night, folks.
So much. Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the Ecology New York at Marino, 75 Ryder Road, solar canopy system, site plan review, continuing the public hearing. Is the applicant here?
Yes, I'm here, Julia Maglioso, representing Ecology.
Right, and I understand that there's been some exchange with our staff as well on this matter. We have in fact, we haven't drafted neg deck, right? Is that correct, Valerie?
Yeah, so the neg deck is actually, that was solely drafted based upon the planning board's review of the application and your comments on the environmental review process.
Okay. So Valerie, do you have any comments about this application at this time?
No, I do not. As directed at the last meeting, I provided you a resolution for the negative declaration.
Okay. Dan, do you have anything to add at this particular time?
No, I do not. I did get some, I guess I got some details that answered some of my questions, but ultimately it'll all have to be contained on all the plan sheets. Respond to my comments, an emailed detail is fine for now, but ultimately we'll need a complete set of plans.
Okay. Kathy, I know you have some comments on this.
So just in terms of procedure, if this board goes forward with adopting the neg deck tonight, it also has to make a recommendation on the proposed rezoning. And then the matter would go to the town board for consideration of the proposed rezoning. And if the town board grants that, then it would come back to this board for site plan approval.
Okay. Does the board members have any comments at this time or questions at this time? No? Do we want to go through discussing the resolution? Valerie?
So for clarification, I provided the board also a resolution. This is the first time we're actually dealing with this particular a tier 3 application. So I provided the board the draft resolution, and in consultation with Kathy, we believe that the best course of action at this point is just, you have the draft resolution in front of you. We table the draft resolution for right now for the site plan approval pending the final outcome at the town board. And at which point, once the town board does its approvals, the applicant will come back to you, and at that point you can pass the resolution. Also, the resolution will better reflect the final decisions made by the town board, and I'll probably end up amending the resolution slightly.
Okay, so in effect, we should examine the draft, but we should table it in terms of actually voting on it.
That's
correct.
Correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
So the board members have a copy of the draft, so we'll have a little bit of time to go through it. So the action we have to take at this point is to make the recommendation to the town board?
After you issue the neg deck. After
Okay.
you adopt the neg deck.
Wait, if we table the neg deck, how do we adopt the neg deck and give a recommendation to the town board?
You're tabling your site plan resolution.
Oh, the site plan. Okay, got it. All right.
Proposed site plan resolution. You're adopting the negative declaration tonight. This enables, if it's appropriate, that would then enable the town board, because seeker's been finished, to go ahead and consider the rezoning. And if they grant it, then it would come back to this board to consider approving the site plan resolution. And you have a draft resolution that we could finalize in the interim and have any comments from the board members. But that would happen. The actual voting on the site plan application, the resolution for the site plan would be after the town board takes an action.
Okay, so the first action we should be taking is considering the neg deck. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to ask if there's anybody from the public, because this is still technically a public hearing before.
Right. Are there members of the public interested in this matter?
I don't see anyone in the audience. If there
Not
is
me.
anybody.
I'm probably the only public, sorry. And no, Belmont here. So,
Oh, okay.
no.
Okay, so let's go to the board members then. Any comments on the neg deck? Donna?
No.
Jim?
No, I do have a question about the height of these units, though, before we move forward. I mean, the image that was given to us in the information looks like it's about just under 22 feet tall, and we're looking for a motion to allow for a 25-foot height. I was just looking to see if there was a minimum and a maximum that we're proposing.
So I'm happy to address why we suggested 25 feet
Sure.
to begin with, because Jim, you are correct. So our system in particular on level grade is on the high end, just under 22 feet tall. It's a little bit tricky from my understanding with the way that height is defined in the actual code. It's a height from the edge of the panel to the ground directly below it. So part of that discrepancy could be there could be a few inches of difference if there is a slight slope underneath where the actual canopy is mounted. So if it's mounted on a post and then underneath the high end, the slope is facing downward, it could increase that height from the canopy top to the ground. So we might be closer to 22 feet and a couple of inches.
Yeah, I'm not looking to restrict you on those tight of margins.
Right.
But if it's not necessary to give an extra 3 feet.
So we had suggested it just because it might not apply to our specific project. It may apply more to other canopy projects in the town. And because this was a zoning text change, it's not just a variance for our project. It would be applicable to any future canopy that might apply.
That's kind of what I'm concerned about, because if we just increase the height, there may be projects that are more visible than yours. And
Sure.
I wouldn't want to just indiscriminately just increase that number unnecessarily.
Right. We understand that. I mean, if the board feels strongly about having a slightly lesser height, we don't have.
And I don't have a concern on the height on your project. It's just the language going forward.
Understood.
So I had a thought on that. It was about the language that we're asking the town to do. And this project is so well screened from the road and other people, but like Jim says, we don't know what will come, in the future. So I was wondering if there was a way, if we are asking for the change to 25 feet, that we would also require that it's going to be adequately screened, so that, this one obviously is, but maybe that would make a difference.
Doesn't the code already provide for an analysis of the screening?
It does require a visual impact assessment for the tier 3 systems. That's correct. And so the applicant did provide that, but they didn't need to have as robust of a visual assessment as you would if, for example, if the canopy was going to be applied to a parking lot, like on North State Road. So. Right. So on the proposed language on the recommendation, could we, as Donna suggested, make it more robust in terms of applying that standard for screening? Can we heighten the awareness of that? Because otherwise, Jim's comment that it's going to go across the board and everybody's all of a sudden going to assume that they could do 25 feet, we might have an issue.
Well, we could limit this to 23 feet. I think that was what Jim, was that what you were saying too, that it doesn't have to be necessarily 25? Like you could have some wiggle room between 22, what the applicant's proposing, and a few extra inches to 23 feet, but not give the additional 2 feet.
Another option the board could consider too is depending on what types of zoning districts. So for example, would the board be opposed to a canopy structure on an existing parking lot in one of our, along North State Road versus within a residential district?
So I would definitely comment on that, because I live in a residential district that abuts North State Road. And the other problem is that North State Road was put in a valley. North State Road is in a valley, so they made the commercial district extremely lower than the Gordon Avenue and Morningside Drive areas. So it's really hard to screen from that. So, it's almost impossible. So I would have problem that 25 feet is like the height of some houses. So, it would just, if there was a way to put a more robust language about screening, then I would feel a lot more comfortable about that.
Gareth, any thoughts?
I was inclined to go with it at the 25, but I think Jim's comment is quite valid. That it's adding quite a bit to the height across the board, and that might not be appropriate in a lot of cases. And it's hard to, if people think they have as of right to do something, it's hard to get them to go down. Whereas if it's at 23 feet, let's say, and someone can make a case for needing 25, we can grant that, or they can get a variance for it. So I would support going with the 23. I think it's a good idea. And I believe, based on the discussion we had with them maybe 2 or 3 months ago, that is plenty high to get trucks and so forth underneath. So it shouldn't be limiting, the commerce, commercial areas in any way.
I'm having trouble coming up with the language that's appropriate to go across the board, because it has to do with how much space you're going to need below the canopy, and also, as the applicant pointed out, the grading on the site.
I mean, I had proposed some draft language to the board by email. I don't know if you want to just.
So if we take Kathy's language on that, I believe Kathy, why don't you read it into the record? The suggestion.
So the proposal is to make a motion to recommend that the town board grant the applicant's requested zone text change to 200-31.3, table 3 of the zoning code, to increase the maximum height from 15 feet to, and I had 25, but there you can make it 23 feet for a canopy that's placed exclusively over impervious surfaces or surfaces without vegetation that are used as parking lots.
Does this language also allow for someone to pave over a pervious surface and then use this as the authorization for up to 25 feet? I mean, we're not worrying about the 25 feet right now. In fact, it's likely that we're going to go to 23 at this point from listening to the board members, correct?
Yes.
Donna?
Yeah,
Jim?
that would be great. Yeah.
Gareth? Okay, so we're likely to go to 23 feet anyway. But the language as proposed right now, with this exclusively over impervious surfaces or surfaces without vegetation that are used as parking lots, what happens if the surface has vegetation but it's removed? How does that take into account?
So there's two things I just want to bring to your attention. One, you could consider just asking for, specifically noting existing paved surfaces. However, as a second note, remember this is a tier 3 system, so it does actually require, it's a floating zone, so it actually requires approval from the town board. So it's not just an as of right. It's a little bit different than for example, the Club Fit. The Club Fit was a rooftop solar in the solar energy systems regulations. That's basically almost a permitted use to a larger extent. They just need planning board approval. Where in this situation, it's not necessarily an automatic permitted use. They actually need town board approval to apply the floating zone to that particular property. So there is a there is a little bit more of a heightened review associated with this type of application.
And if I can just add one comment to the language that Kathy read out that was suggested. I believe we had put a very similar definition together in our initial application. And I had actually pulled that language from the Town of Ossining solar pilot law, which does have that definition of a canopy system. So when we had originally suggested that distinction for the canopy systems, if I remember correctly, I did pull that from the solar pilot law. So it would be consistent between the two if you were to adopt that language.
Okay, are there any concern from the board members, concerns about the language that's proposed right now?
So is there a way to make the screening requirement more robust? Or do you feel, Valerie, like what you're saying with the floating zone, since there will be such like more intense scrutiny over this, do you think that's where that could be looked at? So it's because it's going to be looking at an individual property every time someone proposes, if I'm understanding it correctly?
Yes, there is a requirement to do a visual analysis, but if this is a concern of the board, you can always, as part of your recommendation, make note that this is a concern and it's something for the town board to consider as they're, contemplating making that zoning change. Because maybe we can maybe part of it is take a look at the language for the visual assessment and then maybe emphasize or do a slight change to that to emphasize the visual concerns associated with like canopy systems.
I would be happy with that.
That would sound like a good idea, if we could attach it into the recommendation. Jim, Gareth, any thoughts?
As long as we can bring up the height in the future, that's all we really need. I mean, currently the foundation for the system is set at 6 feet, and it looks like we've got about 13.5 feet of clearance below it, and then it maxes out at around 22 feet. There's nothing that would have prevented this application from just increasing that foundation by 3 feet, and it would kind of be unnecessary. And if it was in a different location, it might be a concern. So as long as we can bring up height, based on the conditions of the next applicant, the next time it comes up, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, it's not this particular application that I think we're concerned with. It's the applicant.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it might impact the entire town in one shot. Okay, can we? All right. Well, can we draft the resolution recommendation to the town board to emphasize that concern with the height, with the visual impact concerns? And I think that we shorten it to 23 feet. I think we're okay with that.
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Gareth?
Yes.
Okay. Valerie, Kathy, is that okay with you folks?
Yes, I think we could just add that and recommend that the town board consider more robust screening requirements for applications within the 15 to 23 foot range, or
Excellent.
something to that effect, so that they can.
That sounds good.
Excellent.
Dan, you have any comments at this time?
Yeah, no, I mean, the screening's not my issue, so I think you guys have to cover it.
Okay. Can I have a motion to that effect?
I think you want to do the neg deck first, though.
Oh, sorry. Could I have
That's
a
the
motion to that?
recommendation. I'm sorry. You could do the recommendation first and then do the neg deck. It's fine.
Okay. Could I have a motion on the recommendation?
I make a
I don't
motion.
have to repeat it.
Okay. Kathy, since you came up with a proposed language, something close to what you just said.
So the recommendation is to grant the requested zone text change. That's to 200-31.3, Table 3 of the zone code, to increase the maximum height from 15 feet to 25 feet 23 feet for a canopy that's placed exclusively over impervious surfaces or surfaces without vegetation that are used as parking lots, and to additionally recommend that the town board consider more robust screening requirements for such applications within the 15 to 23 foot range.
Okay, and just add a word existing impervious surfaces or
over
surfaces without
existing.
vegetation. Okay.
So
So that's the language, Jim. How do you?
Yes.
Gareth, wait a minute, did we get a second on this? Did somebody second the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Jim, or,
Okay, so Jim, you voted yes. Donna,
Yes.
Gareth,
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Now we go to the, I'm sorry, Kathy, what are we doing next?
So now you're adopting your neg deck.
Right, okay, the neg deck. Could I have a motion on the neg deck?
I'll make the motion.
Who second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jim, how do you vote on the neg deck?
Yes. 4.
Donna,
Yes.
Gareth,
Yes.
I vote yes as well. What else do we need to do on this matter right now? Valerie, Kathy?
Nothing else. I don't have anything else.
That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you, applicants. We'll hope to see you folks whenever you have your next steps done.
I mean,
sorry,
what we can,
do you mind if I just take a quick?
I'm sorry, I was just going to add what we can do to avoid having a renoticing is adjourn the application to a date certain, and then we can, because you have
How
already
long do we-
noticed for the site plan, right?
How long do we think we need for this one?
So I believe I've had a couple conversations with Christy in discussing that this potential application is coming back to the town board shortly. So I believe that they'll be able to appear before the town board in November. So I would assume that, you know, they would be able to come back to this board sometime, definitely by the second meeting in December, maybe by the first meeting, depending on how quickly we can move things through the process at the town board. in
Okay,
November.
so Sandy, what's the first meeting in December?
The 4th.
4th?
No,
Okay,
the
so,
second.
sorry?
the second meeting in November is the 18th.
How about the first meeting in December?
Oh, December, sorry.
Oh, that would be the second.
Okay. Valerie, that's what you suggested, right? The first week of December?
Yeah, I mean, why don't we adjourn it to then? And then if for some reason they're still in front of the town board, then we can adjourn it at that point in time. But for sure, we'll definitely have a definitive date when they would be anticipated coming back at that point.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn this to a date certain of December 2nd?
I'll make the motion.
Oops, I'll second.
Okay, Gareth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So we'll see you back on December 2nd, well, unless something happens. But anyway, we hope to see you back then.
Yes.
Have a good night.
I'm sorry, do you mind if I just ask one question before I cede here? I did want to ask, just to be sure that we've covered everything. I believe the town board needed a recommendation on the floating zone from you as well. Is that correct, or did I misunderstand that? I had understood that you needed to make a recommendation on granting the floating zone.
I'm sorry, what floating zone are we talking about?
For this,
Where they're putting the canopy, yeah.
let me just take a look.
Thank you.
Isn't that what Kathy read? Is that we're making a
For the
recommendation
requested
that the
zone
town
change.
board grant the applicant's request for a zone text change to 200-31.3, table 3 of the zoning code?
So we did that.
Yeah.
Technically, while Kathy's looking up, I can explain. Technically, they're also seeking the floating zone itself. When they apply this floating zone to the property, it will be technically a change in zone at that point.
I mean, we could also, for this particular project, we can also, just to cover it, to say that we recommend the granting of applying a floating zone in connection with this project to their property. So it's specific to their property in this project, to applying the floating zone to allow this to their property.
And if the project goes away, the zone change goes away with it?
Well, technically, I believe that if the project goes away and they take down the canopies,
Yes.
I believe technically it would still be applied to the site, correct, Kathy?
Yeah, I mean, once it's applied, it's applied. But it would be for this particular tier 3 solar energy system.
Right.
All right, so if we make a resolution to that effect, as another recommendation to the town board on that floating zoning matter, we can make sure that it's attached to this specific type of project.
You're recommending, I mean, I don't really see that the town board makes a recommendation specifically to apply the floating zone. I don't see that requirement here, but.
We're unless accounting that as, the only thing I could think of, Kathy, is in the Article 7 under amendments, but I don't know if that would technically fall under that.
I mean, it gives the board the ability to apply the floating. I don't know that they need our authority to do that. I mean, or a recommendation. That's what the code says. I mean, we're recommending the proposed rezoning to change the requirements, but I mean, we've issued a neg deck, and implicit in what we've done already, but we could, I mean, it wouldn't be harmful to say that we recommend that the town board consider, granting the proposed floating zone for this property for this project. But I mean, once a zone is applied, it sticks. That they do have the rights, and like anybody else would.
The difference between a floating zone and just having that permitted use underneath is that it allows discretion for the town board to apply this particular use in certain locations and not necessarily throughout the entire town.
Right, and the other distinction is that the floating zone floats over the underlying zone. So the underlying zone stays in place. So it's not changing the entire zoning, it's just allowing this with respect to the solar tier 3 system to sort of float above the existing zone.
So I guess the bottom line is whether going forth in the future, whether somehow another project could be placed using this floating zone.
I mean, it could potentially, I believe, but
Other than the solar panel project, solar canopy project that we're okay with, somebody could slip in a new project in that location?
I mean, from a zoning perspective, yes, but the reality is they would still need a site plan approval. So it would come back in front of this board. So if 20 years from now, that zone is still floating and somebody wants to do some other different kind of canopy proposal, they're still going to need site plan approval. So it's not going to be as of right. It's just still there. And it was appropriate to apply it to the property.
Okay.
So it would not be limited to canopies for solar energy. It could be other canopy types. I mean, that seems too broad to me.
No, it's
I'm
only-
sorry. I'm speaking only about solar. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so long as it stays with a solar project, I don't think I have a problem with it.
Yeah, me too.
What does the rest of the board members think?
I
Jim?
agree with you.
Donna?
I agree.
Gareth?
Yeah, with Kathy's clarification, yes.
Okay, so Kathy and Valerie, if you could draft up something similar to what you just suggested to have the town understand that we would recommend a floating zone if it's necessary, but with the caveat that we assume that it's going to only apply for another solar canopy project.
Okay, so essentially to make a motion to recommend the application, the town board's application of the floating zone to this property in connection with this project. You know, that's how we're recommending it.
Okay, all right. Could I have a motion to that effect?
Make the motion.
Any second?
I'll second.
Jim, how do you vote?
For.
Donna?
For it.
Kara?
For it. I like the
I'm
word.
for it as well. Okay. Anything else on this matter? Okay, and there's no new members of the public who just came in on this matter, correct, Sandy?
No, there's no one else here.
Okay. All right, then, so we'll see you folks back in December then,
Thank you, everyone.
all right?
Thank you.
Bye, Julia.
Bye-bye.
Okay, next item on the agenda is Posella, 3 Waterview Drive, new single-family residence, architectural review, continuing the public hearing. Applicants here, I see?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
Okay, Valerie, what are we doing on this matter?
So this matter actually at this point, the board last month directed me to also create a draft resolution for your review for this project.
Okay. Do you want to go over some of the high points of the resolution, Valerie?
Basically, the resolution identifies, let me just pull it up, but basically the resolution is accepting the applicant's application. I specifically identify the resolution contains the specific materials that the board reviewed. And I have a couple of specific conditions associated with this, specifically that the applicant address all outstanding comments to the satisfactory of the town engineer. And then I also specifically identify landscaping, again, similar to, as we previously said, that all landscaping needs to be installed healthy and vigorous. And then within like the first couple years, if installation fails, then they would be replaced.
Great. Dan, do you have comments?
I did have an opportunity to get out there with the highway superintendent a few days ago. And the site distance issue, I guess we discussed at the previous meeting. And basically it comes down to this landscape island really has some overgrown junipers in it. So in the next couple of days, he's going to cut those back to improve the site distance. And I suspect it's not going to look very pretty after he does that. So I think he's going to revisit the site in the spring and do some planting to enhance the look. But the clearing of those shrubs should go a long way to enhancing the site distance. And as far as my comments from the previous memo, the engineers addressed that and provided the board with a memo stating that. So we're good to go.
Any comments from the board? Donna?
Yeah, I didn't see any new information that came this time since the last time, correct?
It was sent via email. I could forward it again to you if you like, but
Well, I just have a question, because I saw it, but I didn't see any change in the landscaping, because I know in the front,
the landscaping in the back, I know we were asked to vary the species, not to have too many of the same kind. So I
right,
made sure that the landscape architect had done that, or I think it was the engineer actually.
all right, I didn't see
That
that,
should have
I'm
been
sorry.
addressed, and if there's anything in the front that you'd like for me to change, I could definitely do that. It's not an issue.
Okay, yeah, so it was, what's in the front, and I guess it's the person that you're representing, when he was here a couple times ago, he said that those were maples in the front that are existing that he's not taking down.
Correct.
And then he's proposing to put 2 more maples right there in the same spot. So it'd be great to have something other than what's already there. So
Okay.
some other deciduous, nice looking tree, something, you know,
I'll definitely bring that across to the owner's attention.
yeah, just, it's just better for you guys too.
Yes, definitely.
Time
Well, I
more
appreciate all your comments, actually, Don. I think they're really worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Jim, any kind of questions or comments?
I mean, the proposal's consistent with the neighborhood. I don't have any problems with it whatsoever.
Okay. Gareth, any questions or comments?
Only that I wonder if it should be written in as a condition that the retaining walls will be done in the way that they described they would be done, which is that they be built with natural regional stone and with no mortar. And I believe that's how your mason described it last time.
Yeah, and Gary, I actually have some, a photograph, if you'd like to see, of some of the retaining walls that he's done in that area.
I've seen them and they're nice. I just want it, sort of written in that so no one changes their mind.
I agree with you. Thank you. Yes.
Gareth, can you just say that again? Sorry,
Yeah.
can we?
That all the retaining walls on the property be done with natural stone from the area, and that they be constructed without mortar or without cement. That they be a so-called dry stack stone wall. And your mason has done some really beautiful stone walls in that neighborhood. So it's great.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, they'll be consistent with that look. So.
Okay, so Valerie, we'll revise the resolution to reflect that.
Yes.
Okay, and with that revision, could I have a motion to adopt that resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Who seconds? Anybody second?
I'll second.
Gareth, how do you vote?
Yay.
Donna?
Yes.
Jim?
Or, yes.
I vote for as well. Okay, anything else we need to do with this at this time? Oh, is there any members of the public on this matter? Sandy?
I don't believe anybody has their hand raised. Is anybody here for 3 Waterview?
Not me. Again, just here.
Okay, all right. So Valerie, what's the next step on this?
I think you just have to vote on this project and close the public hearing, correct, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay, could I have a motion to close the public hearing on this?
I'll make the motion.
Who seconds?
I'll second.
Gareth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
I vote yes as well, so the public hearing is now closed.
And a motion to approve the resolution as amended.
Okay, I believe we actually did that already, but okay, let's go through that again.
All right, I'll make the motion.
I'll second again.
Gareth?
Jim.
I'll say yes again.
Donna?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Again.
It's Groundhog Day, yes. I vote yes as well.
Yeah.
What's the next thing that needs to be done at this point?
They're done.
That's it.
Great. Nice seeing you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Take
Okay.
care.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, now Park Knolls is on the miscellaneous list. They've asked for a request for a temporary certificate of occupancy. What do we need to do on this?
So this particular application, they're making a request to actually amend some of the resolution conditions. So we had the applicant actually submit what they are proposing to amend, their suggestions for the amendments of the resolution. And we wanted to, I thought it may be best if we just walk through the various conditions, or if the board's already looked at those and if they have any questions. We did have John Hamilton did review the proposed changes, as well as Dan, Kathy, and myself. So really, at this point, it's up to the board to make a decision whether you had concerns with any of these particular revisions. The
Hey, why
part of
don't you
the,
just,
go ahead.
Valerie, just because we are being, it's a Zoom meeting. Do you want to just go over the specific highlights quickly?
Sure. So the developer actually has a number of the buildings done at this point in time, and they're looking to start instead of doing a full certificate of occupancy or a temporary certificate of occupancy for the full buildings, they're looking to go on a floor-by-floor basis. They are also looking, as part of the initial resolution. The initial resolution specifically had the pool area and all the recreational facilities being fully built out at the time. And due to COVID and the inspection schedules, they are requesting an amendment to allow for the swimming pool and the recreational facilities to be finalized at a later date. They're also looking at they're also requesting some of the conditions dealing with the payments, to have those split as opposed to having full payments made at this point in time for both the recreation fees as well as the school district. They're looking to split those into payments throughout the process of them getting their particular temporary CFO. So we can go through each one of these. I mean, it's a pretty detailed request. So if you want, we can hit each one of these bullets.
I just
or we
want
can
to,
start-
before we start, just give some background, because I don't know if all the members were on the board at the time, but there was some concern, and the resolution was very specific about when the TCO and COs could be issued, and it was tied into the improvements or completion of recreational items, right? Because we wanted to ensure that those items be completed. So essentially what they're seeking to do is to amend this board's resolution. I don't think we could really do it as a miscellaneous item. We could discuss it, but they should really come first. If this is something that the board wants to consider, they should, they're going to have to make an application. We're going to have to go through the formal amendment of site plan resolution and do it with a public hearing, but
I mean, I don't remember how this played out completely, because it's been quite some time. But I think there was some concern from the neighborhood about, and concern from the board, that we needed some guarantees on what's going to get done when, and if they decided to stop at some point, what would prevent them from just being done at that point. I mean, there was a certain sequence that everything had to be completed in order to guarantee that the project was going to be 100% at a certain point when the final COs were going to get issued. And now we're
right.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, one of the big issues was they wanted to be certain about the pool, that it wasn't going to be kicked down the road and not completed when people got in there.
right.
The push right now really isn't even about occupying the building. It really has more to do with insurance and allowing him to show the apartments for rental. He has no intention of occupying it. This is really just to put his insurance company at ease so he could show the apartments.
Yeah, I'm certainly not looking to put him in a bind when it comes to items like that. But if he's
And the pool,
done with the apartments, aren't they going to be at some point taking possession of the apartments?
there's another milestone when he could actually occupy them and lot of other things need to be done. So he kind of spells it out in the letter. But I think, I know the pool was really discussed quite a bit, that the board didn't want to see that slip through the cracks. And I can tell you that, the issue, sometimes getting stuff through the health department is problematic. He was anxious to get that done. As it stands right now, the pool equipment is inside the building, the pool mechanical equipment, and the pool itself is built. They're finishing off the pavers, and Tony wants to hold off on putting the final harging. It's a gun-and-night pool, just because he doesn't want it to sit through the winter. I mean, basically, when he buttons up in the next few weeks, that pool will be ready to go. But you can't, the way I understand it, you really can't put that coating on until you're ready to really put water in the pool and get it to cure. So it really doesn't sort of make a lot of sense to do it right at this moment, just to show the apartments for rentals. So I'd say my point being is, I don't think it's, at least on the pool issue, it wasn't contrary to what the board wanted to do, but the pool will be ready to go as soon as the pool season is here. And at this juncture, it's really about showing apartments and not occupying.
I mean, is John considering what he's proposing as field changes, or is he seeking this board to bless what the developer is trying to do?
Well, I wouldn't call it a field change, because he's really not changing anything. But the thing is, the resolution itself is very specific about the milestones before the issuance of the TCO. So we're just looking to have the bases covered, so that, then John doesn't find him, I think it's a reasonable thing for him to ask for, but I think staff is constrained by the terms of the resolution.
Right, because then all the different conditions needed to be finalized before the first TCO could be issued. And those included the recreation payments, the school payments, as well as the completion of the pool.
So I don't have an issue with the substance, but procedurally, if we're going to be amending a resolution, we have to do it through the correct process. I don't think we can handle it as a miscellaneous item. We need to.
Okay. All right. So
I mean,
why don't
we could certainly talk about it tonight and consider the request, but he's seeking an amended resolution, right, of the board.
That's correct.
Yeah, I don't see how we can avoid having them come into a full public hearing, especially given the history of this project with the neighbors. At the same time, it might give us a little bit more, the board members give us a little bit more time to look at the specific proposals they have. At this point, I don't really have an issue with any of the ones that you described or what I've seen in their letter. Donna, Jim, Gareth, do you have any comments or questions?
I have, so I wasn't on the board when this was in front of the board, but I actually did even comment on the projects. I was going through my own thing, and I was paying attention to this one. But could I get a copy of that resolution, Sandy, so I could, because I saw the detailed letter that came, and I just would like some reference to what that's referring to. But I do recall that it wasn't just the pool that was a concern, at least from the EAC's point of view. That was
the whole site.
Yeah, there was a lot of concern with, because they did a really great mitigation landscape plan, and they did a lot of really good things. But I would just like to make sure that those things actually happened or will happen. So Dan was referring to milestones. So what milestone would have to be passed for them to have occupancy if we gave them the temporary? Like, so they're showing the apartments, but when will they be allowed to actually move in? Dan?
Yeah, I guess he kind of spells that almost like as a second milestone. I think the board's resolution contemplated a TCO, so it's almost like we have TCO phase 1, TCO phase 2 here. So I think the other stuff, I believe in the letter, I think he's, you know, all the fees and all that stuff, I think he's ready to pay at the time of, that when he's actually ready to occupy the apartments. I think the only other sort of issue would be the pool. And, you know, I think if, you know, the pool is, you know, 85% done. It isn't like there's a big hole in the ground and it's never going to get done. There's no reason to believe that if the pool isn't ready for use when he's ready for the TCO for occupancy, I think the only reason would be just the time of year.
Right, all the requested changes specifically circle around the temporary certificate of occupancy and not necessarily the final certificate of occupancy. So when you review the details, you'll notice that they're specific to how many temporary certificate of occupancies can be issued before they have to provide either a payment or provide, you know, assurances that the pool is finalized.
So I guess this is just my ignorance, but is it that they can't move in until they have the official CO? Like they can't move in with a temporary CO?
No, they can move into the building with the TCO, but not this interim one.
Not
Once
the interim one.
The full CO is done.
Right.
And basically, the portion of the building will be occupied. All the health and safety issues surrounding occupancy in the building would be resolved, but there would be some uncompleted site plan issues and potentially some apartments that aren't completed, which isn't unusual. It would be almost like an office building with tenant work, that frequently portions of office buildings are occupied without every space in the building having a CO. So everything would be safe for people to utilize the building when the TCO for actual occupancy is issued.
Right, and that's something that we can consider working into the resolution, dealing with the actual occupancy and making sure that these various items are taken care of before occupancy actually takes place.
Yeah,
As
so
long as there's some guarantees that the site work gets completed in its entirety. Or
Well, there's a couple of things, Jim. I mean, one thing is, first of all, we've got plenty of leverage because he has another building still. So he's going to leave it. I mean, the areas that he's going to use, the pavement's going down. It doesn't make sense to put the final course of blacktop down because of, just all the work that's gone on out there, plus going through the winter. So, for example, that would be.
Honestly, I have no doubt that he's going to take care of it, but we did have a lot of concern from the neighborhood. So the last thing I want to do is undo the guarantees that we talked about with the neighbors, and then have it floating in any way. I just wanted to be clear that if one of the neighbors that was concerned previously takes a look at what we're doing now, they're gonna be put at ease. They're gonna be comfortable with what we're proposing. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to go out there, you'll see a lot of the site work is complete at this point. And if, at the point he's looking for the TCO for occupancy, we certainly could discuss holding a bond to leverage to some extent. But ultimately, I think the real leverage on this is the second building.
Okay.
That, he's anxious to occupy that. So we're certainly not losing any leverage by allowing him to do this. He wants to rent out the other building as well.
I did have one other concern, and that is I am very aware now that when a plan leaves the planning department, that changes are made for whatever reason. Would there be any way that we could find out if things that had been approved in the final resolution, if they had been changed when they go through the building department and John puts the filters on that he has to put on? Sandy, is there a way we can get, if we can be informed if there were changes made to the approvals?
I don't think there was any changes made. to this. I think
Okay.
that's why John is referring it back to the planning board, because this would be the change.
Okay, okay.
And Donna, I do go out
I'll
there.
send you the original resolution copies so you can,
Great, thanks,
those over.
thanks. Okay,
And Donna, I do go out there and visit the site. And ultimately, he's going to have to provide us with a final as-built, which will compare to the plans that the board approved.
okay. So then we can find out what that, if you saw something, you would let us know about that?
Right, right.
Right, okay. Thank you.
I just, for procedurally, the applicant is saying on the third page of the letter, the applicant is requesting that the Town of Austining Planning Board allow the Town of Austining Building Inspector to issue the TCO for building number 1 and the apartments in building number 1 as requested in this letter. So if the building inspector is interpreting the resolution that's already in place as constraining him from doing so, I don't think that this board could grant any authority to just overlook whatever this board's resolution was without going through the process, a formal process of amending the site plan resolution.
Sounds good.
All right, so why don't we speak to the applicant and have them make the formal application, and we can sort of, as much as we can, streamline the thought processes beforehand to help this along. So Sandy, if you could just refresh everybody on the board, send everybody the copy of the original resolution. What else can we do at this point? Valerie, Kathy, Dan?
I would just suggest review the original resolution against what they are proposing. And like I said before, we made sure that before this got to your, for your review, that we had John Hamilton take a look at it, Dan to take a look at it, myself, as well as Kathy, just to make sure that there was nothing. Our biggest concern was that there was nothing in here that if you agreed to this, that John was going to have concerns with implementing it. So for sure that has all been dealt with, but now we're dealing with the details.
Should we try and have a resolution drafted based upon his proposal? Because the board will have some time to review his letter and the resolution. And I guess it's
But I
just
can
really a matter
I can
of-
send over a red-lined resolution from the original based upon what he's suggesting at this point.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that would be good. Gareth, any comments from you? Questions, comments?
Only that I'm inclined toward voting to grant his requests. One, I have two concerns, I guess. One is safety, but Dan has spoken to that. It seems that there would be no safety issues. That whatever apartments were going to be shown would be fully appropriately safe. I'm also thinking about the sightline issues that were a big part of the neighborhood concerns. Whatever signage or markings, road markings or tree cuttings or whatever that were related to assuring that the sight lines and the traffic was good. I think that has to be in place before any temporary TCO is put in place. But that, I've been by there. It looks to my eye like that's all fine, but I haven't looked at it, carefully. My second concern is only that if he's talking about changing the schedule for payments, I'm not sure why that's being bundled in with this, because if anything, I would think that being able to show his units earlier would allow him to have a better cash flow than he would otherwise have. So I don't want to burden the town of Austining with not getting funding from the project if it doesn't really make sense. So to summarize, I'd say, yeah, grant it to him, but the timing on the funding, the payments, that that seems like he's throwing that in for his own benefit.
Well, if that's something that the board automatically has concerns with, I mean, we can relay that to the applicant at this point.
But I'm all for him being able to show his units as early as possible and, you know, help him with the cash flow to complete the project.
Okay, so yeah, if you could just contact the applicant and see what their position on those delayed payments would be on the payment issues, so that we have a better sense of how strongly they feel about that topic. Otherwise, we can just wait for them to make the formal application, and we'll address it when it comes before us in a public meeting.
Sandy, could I just ask, can you send us the resolution and their letter, like physically send those copies?
Oh, paper copies? Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'm
If I could get
definitely
those
old school.
in paper also, yeah, it's useful. Otherwise, it's hard to keep track of all the files.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. Thank you.
Will do.
Showing my age, I guess.
I mean, I was just gonna say that we can go straight to a public hearing too on this. We don't have to go to the preliminary, and I mean, it's a very limited changes, and just, I know that there's a time constraint with the applicant, so we could try to work with the applicant and arrange to go straight when they make the application for them to be put straight into a public hearing. And then we could potentially even have a proposed amended resolution for the board to consider that meeting.
We have to pick a date today.
I mean, no, because they haven't made but they could just arrange with Sandy, so they'll, you know, we won't do the preliminary to the public, we'll go straight, put them on the agenda as a public.
Would
I
it
don't
be
see a reason why not.
Would it be appropriate for me to ask to do a site walk, or is that not? Okay.
No, you could go and visit. I mean,
Okay.
most of
it's
the
a
time you could probably
construction
just drive
site,
by
so I
there
don't
and
know.
stop off.
I don't have a hard hat, you know, so I don't know if I would be allowed.
Yeah, I mean, there might be construction type.
And
of
would I have,
You would
Sandy,
probably
would
know
you
that better.
be able to ask them, or, I mean, I don't want
I
to
mean,
just
the
show
place-
up.
The place is paved, you can drive around.
So they wouldn't mind me, they're not going to arrest me if I go on the property?
I mean, if you're more comfortable,
We could ask-
staff could give.
We could
give
ask
the owner a heads
Mr.
up.
Eldati.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sandy, why don't you just arrange it, an appointment for Donna?
Socially distanced.
Okay.
Okay, so we're done with this matter at this point. The only other thing would be we have Santucci and Shermer subdivision. They want another extension of time. We don't have any problems with this, right?
How much time do they need?
No.
Okay.
They're still just working through, the applicants here, still working through health department issues. Hopefully that'll be done shortly.
Okay, how much time do they want? What are they asking for?
Want to address that, Mark?
Yeah, I'm Mark Shore with Dimity Tung Schwalbe here to represent the applicant. Yeah, we're preparing the plat as well as the water main extension and sewer extension to the health department, and those will be submitted shortly. Since I think the last time we were before you, we made some repairs to the sewer main, and now we're getting all the easements, both the the ones that were done 30 plus years ago, as well as the new ones to get everything that we think the health department's going to look for. And obviously the health department may have their own comments. So I think last time we came before you, we got the 2 90-day extension, the double extensions. I think that'd be great. I think we could wrap it up and get everything through the health department in that time period.
Okay, can I have a motion to grant them 2 additional 90-day extensions?
I'll make the motion.
Who seconds? Anybody seconding?
I'll second.
Okay, Donna, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Gareth?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Okay, so, well, hopefully you'll be done before
Certainly, yes.
180 days come up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I noticed we had a letter from the Westchester County Planning Board referral. Do we have to do anything on this other than just basically notify them of our decision? Valerie, Kathy?
No, we don't have to do anything on it.
Okay, so Sandy, you'll take care of addressing any communications that are necessary with them, right?
Yeah, that was just for your information.
Okay. All right, so we have the minutes from October 7th. Have people had a chance to look it over?
Yes.
Okay, motion to it. So anybody have any revisions to it? Jim? Gareth?
Mm-mm.
Okay, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes from October 7th?
I'll make the motion.
Any second?
Second.
Gareth?
Yeah, I accept.
Jim?
Yep.
Donna?
Yes.
I accept them as well. Okay, so we adopted the minutes. Are there any other matters that we need to consider at this point? Valerie, Kathy, Dan, Sandy?
No, but can we just take a minute just to go through with this last, with the resolution? Kathy, you mentioned that we could go right to public hearing on that. So we
Right.
should have them, I just want to look at the calendar so that we can track them, so that we should have them apply for the November 4th planning board meeting.
Probably not
And-
enough time, right?
Right, so if we
The November
automatically-
18th one.
Yeah, we can have them do that. And so that way they'll give us time to automatically send out notification for a public hearing on that.
I mean, unless you
Okay.
want to then since there isn't enough time, if you want to do a preliminary, then on the 4th, and then public hearing for the 18th.
That'd be good. I
Yeah, I
mean, we
think
probably
that's
need to nail down the resolution so that we could actually vote on it on the 18th if it comes up to that.
Yeah,
Right.
I didn't realize there wasn't enough time for the next public hearing, so.
Okay.
Right. Anything else?
No, so we'll specifically request for them to attend on the 4th so that they can present their situation, and then you can ask additional questions, including the concerns that you have dealing with the payments. And then hopefully they'll be able to address some of those.
Great. Okay. Any other matters? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Gareth?
Oh, yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.